Long before history learned to write names, there was a city that refused to be seen. It stood on a vast plateau of black stone, surrounded by endless deserts and silent mountains. No roads led to it, no maps marked its location, and no one was allowed to see the sun inside its walls. The city was called Noctyra. Noctyra was ruled by a single law, older than any king, older than any memory. The sun must never touch the city. This wasn't a suggestion, it was the mechanism of survival. Every morning, just before the first hint of dawn, the entire city would rumble. Massive stone mechanisms, powered by gears the size of houses, would shift and groan. Giant slabs of polished obsidian, a roof for an entire civilization, would slide into place, sealing Noctyra in an impenetrable, artificial night. Then, at dusk, the process would reverse. The obsidian plates would retract, allowing the soft, silver light of the moon and stars to flood the streets like a blessing. The people of Noctyra believed sunlight was a curse, not because it burned the skin or blinded the eyes, but because it remembered. To understand this fear, we must travel back centuries, to a time when Noctyra was just another city. It was prosperous, bright, and alive. Children played in sun-drenched squares. Merchants bartered under a warm, golden sky. It was a city like any other, full of life, laughter, and secrets. Until one morning, the sun rose differently. Its light did not warm the streets. It revealed them. As the first rays touched the cobblestones, shadows began to detach from people's feet, moving on their own. Walls started to whisper secrets that had been locked away for generations. People didn't just see the world around them, they saw the world within them. They saw memories they had painstakingly buried, acts of betrayal, hidden crimes, forgotten promises that now screamed for attention. A husband looked at his wife and saw not love, but the affair she'd had years ago. A shopkeeper saw the scales he had tipped, the customers he had cheated. The city's foundations weren't stone, they were secrets, and the sun was pulling them all apart. By nightfall, the city was broken. The truth, raw and unfiltered, was a poison. Families destroyed themselves over unearthed resentments. Trusted leaders were exposed as frauds. Priests who preached a virtue saw their own hypocrisy laid bare and lost their faith. The social fabric of Noctyra was torn to shreds in a single day. The elders, those who survived the initial chaos, gathered in the twilight. They declared the terrible truth. The sun was no longer a source of light. It was a source of judgment. And so, they made a choice. To save their civilization, they would have to blind it. They built the roof, an architectural marvel born of desperation. And the city survived, in darkness. Generations passed. The people of Noctyra adapted. They learned to live without color, without the warmth of a sunrise, without the simple joy of a sunny day. Their world was a spectrum of grays, blacks, and the muted silver of moonlight. Their eyes grew accustomed to the gloom, their senses sharpened to sound and touch. The story of the sun became a terrifying legend, a cautionary tale whispered to children to keep them from wondering about the world outside. The darkness became their sanctuary, until a child was born who was different, a girl who could see in the dark as if it were day. Her name was Asira. She did not fear the shadows that clung to every corner of the city. In fact, she spoke to them. She saw them not as voids of light, but as entities, as quiet observers. And sometimes, when the roof opened at dusk, she would climb to the highest towers and stare directly at the setting sun, her eyes wide open, unblinking, as the last sliver of light vanished below the horizon. Her behavior was unsettling. The elders called her dangerous, a threat to the delicate balance they had maintained for so long. They warned her parents, they warned the community. But the shadows, the silent witnesses of Noctyra, they called her something else. They called her chosen. On the eve of her 16th year, Asira was drawn by a whisper that no one else could hear. It led her away from the moonlit streets, down into the forbidden foundations of the city. She followed the voice deep beneath Noctyra, past levels of abandoned construction, through tunnels sealed by ancient stone, into a part of the city that had been forgotten for centuries. There, she found an ancient, dust-covered chamber. At its center stood a single object, a massive, cracked mirror forged from gold. It wasn't a mirror of reflection. When Asira looked into it, she didn't see her own face. She saw feelings. She saw intentions. She saw truth. It was a mirror that reflected not the surface, but the soul. And etched across its fractured surface, in a language long dead, was one simple sentence: the sun reveals only what already exists. In that moment, everything clicked into place. The city had misunderstood the curse. The sun had never punished them. It had never created the betrayal, the lies, the guilt. It had only exposed what was already there, hidden inside their own hearts. The chaos that destroyed the old Noctyra wasn't an attack from the heavens. It was an implosion of their own making. They hadn't built a roof to protect themselves from the sun. They had built it to protect themselves from the truth. When Asira returned to the surface, her eyes held a new light. She tried to tell them what she'd found. She spoke of the mirror, of the inscription, of the terrible misunderstanding that had kept them in darkness for so long. The elders, terrified of her discovery, tried to silence her. They branded her a heretic, a madwoman who wanted to bring the great curse down upon them all once more. But they were too late. The shadows, the ancient, silent observers of the city, had already chosen a side. That night, as the city rumbled for its daily ritual of closure, something went wrong. The great mechanisms groaned, shuddered, and then fell silent. The obsidian roof did not close. Panic erupted. For the first time in centuries, the people of Noctyra were about to face the sunrise, completely unprotected. They screamed. They ran for cover. They braced for the psychic agony, for the wave of judgment that their legends had promised. The sun rose. Light, pure and golden, flooded the streets of Noctyra. It poured into every alley, every home, every corner that had not felt its warmth for an age. People cowered, shielding their eyes, waiting for the end. And then, nothing happened. No one burned. No memories shattered their minds. The walls remained silent. The shadows clung obediently to their feet. They just saw. They saw the city in color for the first time. They saw the faces of their neighbors, their friends, their family, not in the forgiving gloom, but in the clarity of day. And in that light, they saw themselves. And many, overwhelmed not by judgment but by a profound sense of long-dormant truth, fell to their knees and wept. What remained of Noctyra after that day was different. Some couldn't handle it. Unable to face a world without shadows to hide in, they fled the city, disappearing into the deserts, choosing a different kind of darkness. But others stayed, and they began to change. Noctyra did not fall. It transformed. The roof was never rebuilt. The great obsidian slabs remained open, like a permanent monument to a fear they had finally overcome. Asira was never crowned queen. She didn't need to be. She became something older, something more fundamental. She became the Keeper of Light, the first in a new line of guardians who taught that truth was not a weapon, but a guide. Today, travelers and mystics say Noctyra still exists, though it remains off every map. A city where nothing can be hidden. A place where shadows tell the truth, but only if you're willing to listen. And if you ever find yourself there, standing beneath its open sky at dawn, the sun will not judge you. It will only ask you one thing: what are you trying not to see? Some civilizations fall to fire, others fall to war, and some, like Noctyra, fall to truth, only to be reborn from its light. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.